Bitcoin.
I say when we
You can
sell.
wake up every morning and say GM.
GM. GM. This is daily levels for Sunday, not Monday. I mistakenly had the daily open and the weekly open mixed up. Okay, so TradingView is rogging me. Let's refresh this shit. Alright, okay. Now, for daily levels, I should say. Recording early because I'm going to be traveling at 6 in the morning, so getting it out now. Bitcoin path, and then a little bit of Sol. So here's a rough path I expect for BTC. Bitcoin showing some bullish momentum on lower time frames after having held at the lows for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all of them closing right around 96.5. Quite likely on Sunday we see some kind of squeeze higher, and I would guess that that's going to move towards the point of control and the 50. So you're talking about 98 to 98.5. If that happens, I think we could then see a move lower going into the start of next week towards the 93.5, which is the value area low and the 100-day EMA. So ping pong between the EMAs, and you've confluence of a point of control and a value area high, a value area low. So this might not happen, but it's pretty common that those would have liquidity and would be able to trap the market. Hard to push it through there, hard to push through there. So I think up, down, and then up, back for a retest. Because the main thing, if we are going to take out these lows, and I talked about this with Prof. Adam on the crossover stream, this isn't a guarantee. I don't think we are going to take the lows out for sure. But if there is some kind of negative catalyst in the second half of the month that can take us down for a final sweep, which would really take out any of the positioning that's built up here, and certainly send sentiment into overdrive to the bearish side, we might do it that way. But this is daily levels, and so we're looking more at what's going to happen on Sunday going into Monday. So that's like the 1 week view. And zooming it in, what you want to look then at is the lower time frame action right now. So we can see BTC is squeezing up into the bands. Now the bands are bearish, the 1 hour bands are lower, these are retests bearish, but it's been making its way through them, touching the 200, touching the 200, touching the 200 3 times. The bands were very wide apart when we crashed on Monday, and they're slowly starting to compress. They're almost starting to inflect upwards, which could give you a move through the range, right? The range of the bands. We've got this little box here that you could see Bitcoin break through and push towards 97 or 98.1. And why 98.1? You can see that here with, not the bars pattern, where is my fixed range? If you just drag across all of this, you've got a point of control up there at about 98.3. And if I draw it from the lows of this consolidation, it's about 98 point, or is it 98.1? No, sorry, 98.3. I think it's just different exchanges. But anyway, it gets you the confluence around the same area. 98 to 98.4. It's a range, it's an area, right? You're not going for exact price targets, these kind of moves. And then you've got Solana. So intraday, Sol seems to be setting up for a slight bit of outperformance. It's put in this lower end range retest. So it's retested its wick. It was one of the first ones to do it. So if you look at, say, SUI, which I'm trading, SUI has come down to the 200, but hasn't came down right into that wick, which I think it will. But obviously here it's going to bounce to some extent, right? Usually when you get back to these moving averages, they tend to hold and produce some kind of move higher. If you look at Sol, it's already made its way down there. and has put in a low time frame bottom. Right, we've got this double bottom slash FTR, and it's starting to grind its way back up through the range. And now when I'm talking this, I'm only talking about like these highs, sort of 203, 204. I think if this is squeezing, as it's had this slow grind up through the range, it's probably going to squeeze with a target of 203, 204 to get that liquidity before some kind of corrective pullback. It may not get there. Resistance might step in and, pull it up short of that. But it seems like there's momentum there. Now you also have confluence with the data, because at the same time, you've got Sol over here, which has a build-up of open interest. So since, I think that was, Tuesday, you've seen Solana declining. So price went down a total of 7%. And at that point, when it reached the lows, open interest had built up to 8%. So 8% OI increase with a 7% price decrease. So that's positions opening. Obviously, the shorts that are opening there have been getting slowly absorbed as price fails to go lower, which sets up for a squeeze. And here we are squeezing. And you know that because OI is slowly declining as price is bottoming and rising. And then when you zoom into Saturday's price action, from Saturday, we've seen it just steadily stair step higher while open interest has been falling. And that usually ends with something like we're seeing right now, where it ends with a bit of a bang and it spikes ever so slightly higher, probably to liquidity. I don't know where it goes beyond that, but my target would be that liquidity. And I'm in a trade for that. It's a scalp trade, so obviously don't try and follow it. It's a very fast moving trade, but it's in the Prof's journal. And beyond that, let's take some zoom out and look at some daily charts. Let's look at where these post liquidation event, how close are these different coins to retesting their wick lows. Bitcoin holding up best, of course. ETH, because it had such a collapse, you can see that it's actually not retracing as far down into it, which is an indication that ETH probably won't make it all the way down on the first try, because that is a big sign of weakness, big lack of liquidity. But it was so overextended that probably you could see some support coming in. I mean, I would guess if it's able to come back to like the bottom of this range where the original impulse began from, that might be like where you would see a retest on Ethereum. So if it moves up and isn't able to break structure, you might see it move down again and then start to bottom out there before some kind of sustained rally. And that would be around the time again if Bitcoin goes for its low. What you want to watch is if Bitcoin makes a new low going into the latter part of February, because ETH has had such a collapse, it could well make a higher low. So if Bitcoin bottoms out sort of late February, and you're looking at Ethereum to just move around, get bearish, chop around, probably be weaker than Bitcoin in that moment. And then if Bitcoin goes below its lows, that'll drag ETH way down into this area here. But it could very well hold at a higher low. And then if the market starts to rally, ETH can rally off a higher low. And that would catch people out because, of course, if they think Bitcoin's going below 89, they're going to think that, well, ETH's going to go below 2K. But ETH already had a capitulation. And it may well hold, at least at the first try. And it's the weekend, so not much else to really talk about. No stock market open, nothing like that. Shitcoins, not really much point me looking at any of those because I'm not particularly tracking them. And that is that. That's your Sunday daily levels. GM, Bitcoin path, Sol outperforming. ETH, I wouldn't trade it this weekend. I don't think there's much for ETH. I think Sol's probably better. And on trade of the day, I'm going to dig down a bit into the CME Open. So the Sunday night, what you can expect to see at Sunday night. GM.